Rejected bride waited 3 days. Then a child in boots asked, "Will you marry my daddy?" The wedding dress hung in the closet like a ghost. Claire Matthews sat on the porch of the small ranch house, watching dust devils dance across the empty road. 3 days had passed since Jacob left her at the altar. 3 days of whispered pity from neighbors and burning shame that wouldn't fade. The morning sun beat down on her shoulders as she gripped the porch railing, knuckles white. She should have left this town already, but something kept her frozen in place. A truck rumbled up the dirt road, kicking up clouds of red dust. Claire didn't move. She'd stopped caring who saw her anymore. The vehicle slowed and stopped in front of her property. A man stepped out, tall and weathered, with a black cowboy hat pulled low. He walked around to the passenger side and opened the door. A small figure jumped down. The child couldn't have been more than 6 years old. Tiny boots hit the ground with determination. The kid wore denim overalls and a red bandana tied around the neck. Dark curls poked out from under a miniature hat. The child marched straight toward Claire's porch while the man followed at a distance, hands shoved in his pockets. Claire straightened up as the little one climbed the steps without hesitation. Brown eyes studied her with an intensity that seemed too old for such a young face. "Are you the lady who got left at the church?" the child asked. Claire's throat tightened. "Yes." "Good." The kid crossed small arms. "My daddy needs a wife. Will you marry him?" The absurdity of it hit Claire like cold water. She blinked at the child, then at the man who had stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. He pulled off his hat, revealing sandy hair and a face lined by sun and hard work. His expression showed embarrassment mixed with something desperate. "Katie, we talked about this," he said quietly. "You said you needed help with the ranch, and that meant getting married." Katie shot back without looking at him. "Well, here's somebody who already has a dress and everything." Claire would have laughed if her chest didn't feel so tight. "I don't even know you people. I'm Katie Morrison. This is my daddy, Luke. Our ranch is 15 miles west. Mama died 2 years ago. Daddy works too hard and forgets to eat. The bank man came yesterday and said bad words about money. Daddy needs help or we'll lose everything." The child delivered this information like a business report. Luke Morrison climbed the steps slowly. "I'm sorry. She overheard me talking to my brother about needing to find a partner for the ranch. Someone with ranch experience who could help manage things." Katie took it literally. He glanced at his daughter with a mixture of exasperation and love. "We should go. Wait." Claire surprised herself by speaking. "What kind of help do you need?" Luke's eyes met hers. They were gray, like storm clouds. "The kind that requires someone who knows cattle, can handle accounts, and isn't afraid of 16-hour days. The kind that probably doesn't exist. I grew up on a ranch," Claire heard herself say. "Managed my father's books for 8 years before he sold out. I can ride, rope, and brand. I know the business end from the livestock end." Katie's face lit up. "See, Daddy? She's perfect." "This is crazy," Luke said, but he didn't move to leave. His eyes searched Claire's face. "You don't know us." "I don't know you. This isn't how people do things." Claire stood up. Her legs felt shaky, but her voice came out steady. "How do people do things? They date for years, make promises, and still walk away 3 days before the wedding." Bitterness crept into her tone. "Maybe crazy is exactly what I need right now." The silence stretched between them. Katie looked from one adult to the other, holding her breath. "I'm not offering romance," Luke finally said. "I'm offering hard work, a failing ranch, and a 6-year-old who thinks she runs the place. The house needs repairs. The cattle need moving to summer pasture. The books are a mess. If we don't turn things around in 6 months, the bank takes everything." "What's in it for me?" Claire asked. "A home. A stake in something real." He paused. "And maybe a chance to prove that not everyone breaks their word?" Claire looked at the little girl with the fierce eyes and the desperate hope written across her face. She looked at the man who stood straight despite the weight on his shoulders. She thought about the empty house behind her and the ruined dress in the closet. She thought about Jacob's cowardice and the suffocating pity of this town. "When do we leave?" she asked. Katie let out a whoop and threw her arms around Claire's waist. The Morrison Ranch appeared on the horizon like a mirage. Claire sat in the passenger seat of Luke's truck. Katie squeezed between them, chattering nonstop about horses and chickens and the mean rooster named Bonaparte. The landscape had shifted from flat plains to rolling hills dotted with scrub oak and mesquite. Barbed wire fences lined the road, many sagging or broken. Luke turned onto a narrow drive marked by a weathered wooden sign that read Morrison Ranch, established 1873. The truck bounced over ruts and rocks. Claire gripped the door handle, watching the property unfold before her. A 2-story house sat at the center, white paint peeling and shutters hanging crooked. Behind it sprawled a massive barn with red paint faded to pink, smaller outbuildings scattered across the yard in various states of disrepair. Chickens wandered freely, pecking at the dirt. The truck rolled to a stop. Luke killed the engine but didn't move. "It's worse than I remembered," he muttered. "It has good bones," Claire said, studying the house. She could see the craftsmanship in the original construction. The wide porch meant for evening sitting, the large windows designed to catch cross breezes. It just needs attention. "It needs a miracle," Luke corrected. He climbed out and came around to help Katie down. Claire opened her own door and stepped onto Morrison's soil for the first time. The wind carried the smell of livestock and dry grass. In the distance, she could see cattle grazing on sparse vegetation. Not enough of them, she noted. The herd looked thin. A screen door slammed. A man emerged from the house, younger than Luke by several years. He wore jeans and a white t-shirt, his face showing surprise as he approached. "Luke, what's going on? Who's this?" "This is Claire Matthews," Luke said. He rubbed the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable. "She's going to help us save the ranch." "We're getting married." The man's jaw dropped. "You're what? When did this happen? I just saw you 3 hours ago and you didn't mention anything about, I don't know, suddenly getting engaged." "It's complicated, Danny," Luke said. "I'll bet it's complicated." Danny looked at Claire with open curiosity. "Ma'am, I don't mean to be rude, but my brother doesn't exactly make impulsive decisions. Last year it took him 3 months to decide on a new tractor. Now he shows up with a fiancée? She was supposed to marry somebody else, but he ran away. And then Katie asked her to marry Daddy instead, and she said yes," Katie explained helpfully. "Can we have cake at the wedding?" Danny blinked several times. "I need to sit down." "Later," Luke said. "Danny, show Claire around the house. I need to check on the south pasture fence. Katie, you help your uncle." He looked at Claire. "We'll talk specifics tonight. There's a spare room upstairs, second door on the left. Make yourself comfortable." He walked away before anyone could respond, long strides carrying him toward the barn. Claire watched him go, feeling the first flutter of doubt. What had she just agreed to? "Come on," Danny said, recovering his composure. "I'll give you the grand tour." "Fair warning, it's not grand." He led her up the porch steps, Katie skipping ahead. The front door opened into a large living room filled with mismatched furniture and scattered toys. Dust covered every surface, newspapers piled on a coffee table, boots lined the wall in chaotic rows. "Luke works from dawn till past dark," Danny explained, seeing her expression. "Cleaning kind of fell by the wayside after Melissa passed. Katie tries to help, but she's 6.
He moved through to the kitchen. Claire's practiced eye cataloged the space.
Good layout, plenty of counter room, but dirty dishes filled the sink and spilled onto the counters. The trash overflowed. Mud tracked across the linoleum floor. "How long have you been here helping?" Claire asked. 6 months. I came when things got really bad. Before that, I was working oil rigs in West Texas. I'm okay with cattle and repairs, but the business side? He shook his head. "Not my strength. Luke's drowning in paperwork and debt. The bank wants to foreclose. We're behind on everything." Claire opened the refrigerator, nearly empty except for milk, eggs, and some dubious leftovers. "When's the last time anyone went grocery shopping?" "Tuesday, I think. Katie and I went. Mostly got cereal and sandwich stuff." Danny leaned against the counter. "Look, I don't know what's happening here, but if you can actually help my brother, I'll be grateful. Luke's a good man." He's just in over his head. After Melissa died, something broke in him. He works like he's trying to outrun grief. He's wearing himself down to nothing. Katie tugged on Claire's hand. "Want to see your room?" They climbed the stairs. The wood creaked under their feet. Picture frames lined the wall, showing a younger Luke with a beautiful woman and a baby Katie, family moments frozen in time. Happiness that felt like ancient history. Katie pushed open a door to reveal a small bedroom with a single bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the front yard. Plain but clean. Someone had made an effort here. "Daddy cleaned it yesterday," Katie said. "He said we might need it." "I think he knew you were coming." "How could he know that?" Claire asked, setting down the small bag she'd brought. Katie shrugged with the mysterious wisdom of children. "Sometimes Daddy just knows things. Like when it's going to rain or when a cow's about to have a baby. He knew we needed you." Claire sat on the bed, suddenly exhausted. The events of the morning felt surreal. 24 hours ago, she'd been drowning in humiliation, unable to see past her own ruined plans. Now she sat in a stranger's house, agreeing to marry a man she'd met an hour earlier on a ranch that was clearly falling apart. Madness. Complete madness. But for the first time in 3 days, her chest didn't feel quite so tight. The shame had lifted slightly, replaced by something else. Purpose, maybe. Or just the distraction of new problems to solve. "Can you really help us?" Katie asked quietly. The bravado from earlier had faded. Now she just looked like a scared little girl. The bank man was really mean. He made Daddy's face go all hard and angry. "I don't want to leave. This is my home. Mama's buried here." Claire reached out and squeezed the small hand. "I'm going to try. I can't promise we'll succeed, but I promise I'll try." Katie nodded solemnly, as if they'd just signed a binding contract. "That's good enough. Come on, I'll show you the rest." The tour continued. 3 more bedrooms upstairs. One clearly Luke's, one Katie's. One that served as a catch-all storage space. A bathroom with ancient fixtures but surprisingly good water pressure. Back downstairs, Danny showed her the office, a small room off the kitchen that made Claire's heart sink. Papers everywhere. Receipts, bills, bank statements, all mixed together in overwhelming chaos. A computer that looked 10 years old sat on the desk, powered off. Filing cabinet stood open, empty. "Luke keeps meaning to organize it," Danny said apologetically. "But by the time he comes in from the fields, he's too tired to think straight. He just tosses stuff in here and deals with it later." Except later never comes. Claire rolled up her sleeves. "Okay, first things first. Katie, can you help your uncle with dinner? I'm going to start sorting this mess." "We were just going to have sandwiches," Danny admitted. "Sandwiches are fine, make enough for 4. Claire moved to the desk, already mentally categorizing the chaos. Bills here, receipts there, bank statements in order by date. She'd done this before for her father's ranch. The work was tedious but not difficult. You just had to be systematic. Hours passed. Claire barely noticed. She sorted and stacked, creating piles across the floor. The picture that emerged made her stomach clench. The ranch was in worse shape than Luke had indicated. They weren't just behind on payments, they were drowning. Feed bills unpaid for 3 months. Equipment loans in default, property taxes overdue, and the cattle sales, she could see from the records, had been declining for 2 years. Fewer heads sold, lower prices received. The ranch was bleeding money. The sun slanted through the window, turning everything gold. Claire heard the front door open, boots on the floor. Luke appeared in the doorway, covered in dust and sweat. He stopped when he saw her surrounded by papers, calculator in hand, notepad covered in figures. "You actually meant it," he said quietly. "About helping?" "Did you think I'd run?" Claire asked without looking up. "Most people would. I'm not most people. And according to these numbers, you don't have time for me to run. Luke, this ranch is 30 days from foreclosure. Maybe less. The bank's been patient, but that patience is about to run out." He leaned against the doorframe, exhaustion in every line of his body. "I know. Because these records suggest you've been avoiding the reality of the situation. When was the last time you actually sat down and looked at the full picture?" "I know we're in trouble," he said, defensive now. "I'm out there every day trying to fix it, working the cattle, repairing fences, doing everything I can." "You're working hard, but you're not working smart," Claire said, finally meeting his eyes. "You're so busy putting out fires that you can't see the forest is burning down around you. You need a plan, a real plan, not just hope that hard work will somehow magically solve everything." Luke's jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he might argue or throw her out. Instead, he nodded slowly. "You're right. I've been running on autopilot since Melissa died. Just trying to survive day to day. I stopped thinking about the future because it hurt too much. Well, the future is here whether you like it or not, and if we don't do something fast, Katie's going to lose her home." Claire softened her tone. "But there might be a way. It'll be hard. Really hard, and it requires you to trust me. I brought you here, didn't I? You brought me here because a 6-year-old gave you an impossible solution to an impossible problem, and you were desperate enough to say yes. That's not the same as trust."
Luke pushed off the doorframe and came into the room.
He looked at the organized piles, the neat columns of figures on her notepad. "Tell me your plan." "First, we need to stop the bleeding. Cut unnecessary expenses immediately. Second, we need income fast. That means selling off some assets. Not cattle, we'll need those. But I saw equipment sitting unused. Old trucks, a tractor that's clearly beyond repair, other machinery. We sell it for scrap or parts. It won't be much, but it'll buy us breathing room. Third, we restructure your operation. You're trying to run a cattle ranch the way your grandfather did, but that model doesn't work anymore. We need to diversify. Diversify how? I saw you have good water access. That creek running through the south pasture, that's gold. We could lease grazing rights to neighboring ranchers, charge premium for the water access. We could start a small hay operation, sell feed to local ranches. We could even look into agritourism, offer riding lessons or weekend ranch experiences, anything to create multiple revenue streams. Luke listened intently. That all sounds good in theory, but it takes money to make money. We don't have capital for new ventures. No, but we have something better. We have skills and we have land. We use sweat equity. We do everything ourselves. I can manage the books, handle the marketing, coordinate sales. You and Danny handle the physical work. Katie helps where she can. We make this a family operation in the truest sense. And the wedding? Luke asked quietly. Where does that fit into your business plan? Claire hesitated. This was the part she'd been avoiding thinking about. We need to get married for this to work legally. I need to be a partner on paper so I can make financial decisions, sign contracts, negotiate with the bank. Her fiancé has no standing. A wife does. That's practical, Luke said, his tone unreadable. This doesn't have to be romantic, Claire continued quickly.
We can make it a business arrangement.
Clear boundaries. You have your space, I have mine. We work together to save the ranch. After that, we can figure out what comes next. Maybe we stay married, maybe we divorce. But right now, we focus on survival. Luke was quiet for a long moment. Outside, Claire could hear Katie laughing at something Danny said. The evening birds started their songs. The ranch settled into twilight. I appreciate you trying to protect yourself, Luke finally said, setting up those boundaries before anyone gets hurt. But I need you to understand something. I married Melissa because I loved her. She was my best friend, my partner, my everything. When she died, I thought that part of my life was over. I wasn't looking for another wife. I wasn't even looking for help. Katie just forced the issue. I know, but now you're here, and you're offering to save everything my family built. You're offering to give my daughter a future. That means something to me. So yeah, let's start this as a business arrangement. Let's be practical and smart. But I won't lie to you. If we do this, if we stand up in front of people and make vows, even if we're just saying words, I'm going to honor them. That's who I am. I won't be the kind of husband who treats his wife like an employee. Claire's throat felt tight. What are you saying? I'm saying we should be honest with each other. We're strangers entering into something that shouldn't work, but might be our only option. Let's agree to be kind to each other, to communicate, to actually try to make this work not just as a business partnership, but as real people sharing a life. He met her eyes steadily. I won't push for more than you want to give, but I also won't pretend you're just here to balance the books. That's fair, Claire whispered. We should probably also talk about your situation, Luke added, the man who left you. Is he going to be a problem? Jacob? No. He made his choice. He wanted an easy life in town, not a rancher's wife. He found someone else, someone who fit his plans better. The words still stung, but less than they had 3 days ago. I doubt he'll even notice I'm gone. His loss, Luke said simply. Then he glanced at her notes. How long do we have to pull off your plan? If we're aggressive, we can probably get the bank to give us 90 days. 3 months to show improvement, prove we're viable, but that means starting immediately. Tomorrow we inventory everything for sale. Next week we start contacting potential buyers and lessees. 2 weeks from now, we should have our first diversified income stream active. And the wedding? This weekend? Claire said firmly. We need the legal standing immediately to negotiate with the bank. Plus, it sends a message that things are changing here. New management, new direction. Luke nodded slowly. Okay. I'll call Pastor Jim tomorrow. He owes me a favor.
He can do a simple ceremony at the church.
Nothing fancy. Good. Claire stood, her legs stiff from sitting so long. Now, where's dinner? I'm starving. They walked to the kitchen together. Danny had managed to produce not just sandwiches, but a decent spread with chips, vegetables, and even cookies. Katie sat at the table, swinging her legs, beaming at them both. Are you staying? She asked Claire. I'm staying, Claire confirmed. Forever? Claire glanced at Luke. He gave her a small nod. Yeah, kid. Forever. Katie's smile could have lit the entire house. They married on Saturday in a small church with peeling paint and creaking pews. Pastor Jim performed the ceremony with Danny and Katie as witnesses. Claire wore a simple blue dress she'd borrowed from a neighbor. Luke wore clean jeans, a white shirt, and a black string tie. His hands shook slightly when he slid the plain gold band on her finger. She did the same for him, their eyes meeting over the simple vows. The words felt heavy with meaning neither of them had expected. Katie cried happy tears. Danny clapped them both on the back afterward. Pastor Jim refused payment but accepted Claire's promise of fresh eggs once the ranch started producing again. They signed the papers in the church office, making it official. Claire Morrison. The name felt foreign in her mouth. They drove back to the ranch in silence, Katie asleep between them. The wedding had been quick, practical, nothing like the elaborate ceremony Claire had planned with Jacob, but somehow it felt more real, more solid. Two people making a choice to stand together against impossible odds. Romance? Could wait. Survival came first. Monday morning arrived with brutal clarity. Claire woke at dawn, dressed in jeans and boots she'd retrieved from her old house, and headed to the office. Luke was already gone, out checking cattle. Danny moved around the kitchen making coffee. Katie would sleep for another hour. Claire had that time to work uninterrupted. She pulled out her laptop, the one thing she'd insisted on buying before the wedding, and started creating spreadsheets. Every asset listed, every debt cataloged, every potential income stream mapped out. By the time Katie wandered downstairs rubbing her eyes, Claire had a complete picture of their situation. It was even worse than she'd thought. They needed $15,000 in 30 days just to stay afloat. $30,000 in 90 days to satisfy the bank, plus ongoing operational expenses. The ranch generated maybe $4,000 a month in its current state. The math didn't work. They needed miracles, not plans. But Claire had learned long ago that miracles were just good planning meeting opportunity. She picked up the phone and started making calls. First to the county assessor's office, confirming property lines and water rights, then to neighboring ranchers, feeling out interest in grazing leases, then to equipment dealers, getting quotes on the machinery they'd be selling. By noon, she had 3 potential buyers for the old tractor and 2 ranchers interested in discussing grazing rights. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. Luke came in for lunch, dusty and sweating. He stopped when he saw her on the phone, taking notes, professional and confident. Something shifted in his expression. When she hung up, he said, "You're really doing this? Did you think I wouldn't?" "I don't know what I thought." He poured water from the tap, drank deeply. "But watching you work, it's like seeing the ranch come back to life. Like there's hope again. We're still in deep trouble, but I found buyers for 3 pieces of equipment. That's $8,000 if we're lucky. And I have 2 ranchers coming by Thursday to discuss leasing arrangements." Luke sat heavily in a chair. $8,000 would let us make the equipment loan payment. Buy us more time. Exactly. Then we use that time to set up the other revenue streams. I'm also going to call the bank this afternoon. Request a meeting. We need to show them we're serious about turning things around. The bank manager, Phil Henderson, he's not going to be sympathetic. We've missed too many deadlines. Then we don't ask for sympathy. We present facts. New management structure, diversified income plan, concrete steps already in motion. We make him believe we're worth the risk. Luke studied her across the table. "You're something else, Claire Morrison." The name still felt strange, but hearing him say it sent a small warmth through her chest. "We're partners now. Your success is my success. Your failure is mine too. I've got skin in the game. More than skin. You tied your whole life to this sinking ship. Then we better make sure it doesn't sink." Thursday arrived with the first ranchers. Ben Carter ran cattle on the property adjacent to theirs, a grizzled man in his 60s who'd known Luke's father. He walked the creek with Luke and Claire, assessing the grass and water. "You're sitting on prime grazing," he admitted. "I've got 60 head that could use this for summer pasture. What are you thinking price-wise?" Claire had done her research. She quoted him a number that made his eyebrows rise, but wasn't unreasonable. "That's steep," he said. "That's fair market value for this quality of grazing, plus unlimited water access. You know what water costs in a drought year? This creek never runs dry." Ben looked at Luke. "Your wife drives a hard bargain." "She's saving my ranch," Luke said simply. "I'm inclined to let her drive whatever bargains she wants." They settled on a price slightly lower than Claire's opening number, but well above what Luke had been considering. Ben would bring his cattle in 2 weeks, payment up front, $3,000 guaranteed. The second rancher, a younger woman named Lisa Chen who ran a small organic beef operation, wanted grazing rights for the fall, another $2,000, $5,000 total from leasing alone. It wasn't enough, but Friday morning Claire dressed in her most professional outfit, a dark skirt and blazer. Luke wore slacks and a button-down shirt. Katie stayed with Danny. They drove to town in nervous silence. The First National Bank occupied a brick building on Main Street. Phil Henderson's office was on the second floor. His secretary kept them waiting 15 minutes, a power play Claire recognized immediately. When they finally entered, Henderson barely looked up from his desk. "Mr. Morrison, I wasn't expecting you. We don't have an appointment." "This is my wife, Claire," Luke said, his voice steady. "She's now a partner in the ranch operations. We wanted to update you on our situation." Henderson finally looked at Claire. His expression was dismissive. "Another partner isn't going to change the fundamental problems, Mrs. Morrison. Your ranch is insolvent. We've been more than patient." "Patient or passive?" Claire asked sweetly. She set her folder on his desk, opened it to reveal detailed spreadsheets. "Because it seems to me the bank has been content to watch the Morrison Ranch fail rather than work with a borrower to find solutions. That's not patience. That's just poor risk management on your part." Henderson's face reddened. "Excuse me? You heard me. You have a 150-year-old ranch as collateral. Prime grazing land, water rights, established infrastructure. That's valuable. But only if it's operational. Force a foreclosure, and what do you get? Land you'll have to maintain and sell in a depressed market. You might recoup 70% of the loan value if you're lucky." She slid a spreadsheet across to him. "Or you could work with us. We've already generated $8,000 in equipment sales, closed this week. We've secured $5,000 in grazing lease contracts, payments received. We have proposals for hay operations and agritourism that project $30,000 in revenue over the next 6 months. The ranch is becoming viable again. We just need time." Henderson studied the numbers. His expression shifted from dismissive to interested. "These figures are real. Contracts are in the folder. You can verify everything. We're not asking for forgiveness of debt or even reduced payments. We're asking for 90 days to prove we can meet our obligations. Then we want to restructure the loans into a longer-term payment plan that reflects our new revenue projections." "That's a lot to ask. It's a lot less than you'll lose in foreclosure," Claire countered. "And you know it. So what's it going to be? Do you want to be the banker who saved the Morrison Ranch, or the one who killed it?" Henderson leaned back in his chair. "You're quite the advocate, Mrs. Morrison. I'm quite invested in the outcome," she said. "Now, can we talk seriously about restructuring, or are we wasting everyone's time?" They spent the next hour negotiating. Henderson remained skeptical, but the numbers didn't lie. Claire had done her homework. By the time they left his office, they had a 90-day reprieve and a conditional agreement to restructure if they hit specific benchmarks. It wasn't perfect, but it was a lifeline. In the truck, Luke let out a breath he'd been holding. That was incredible. You just stared down Phil Henderson. Nobody does that. He's a bully who relies on people being too intimidated to fight back. I've dealt with worse. Claire felt the adrenaline fading, leaving her shaky. "But we're not out of the woods yet. We still have to deliver on everything I promised." "We will," Luke said with new confidence. "If you can do that, I can do my part." They drove home in better spirits. Katie met them at the door. "Did we win?" "We got a chance to win," Luke said, scooping her up. "Which is more than we had yesterday." The summer heat intensified as June progressed. Claire established routines. Mornings in the office, handling calls and paperwork. Afternoons in the fields, learning the physical side of the ranch alongside Luke and Danny. The work was brutal. Fixing fences under the blazing sun, moving cattle between pastures, maintaining equipment that broke down constantly. Her hands blistered, then calloused. Her shoulders ached. But every evening when she tallied the numbers, they improved incrementally. Equipment sales finalized. Lease payments received. A small contract secured to provide hay to a local stable. Each success built momentum. The ranch began to feel less like a lost cause and more like a work in progress. Katie became Claire's shadow. The child helped where she could, feeding chickens, gathering eggs, organizing supplies. But more than the labor, Katie talked it. She told stories about her mother, about growing up on the ranch, about her dreams for the future. Claire listened, finding herself genuinely caring about this fierce little girl who dragged her into this mess. One evening, as they collected eggs together, Katie asked, "Do you love my daddy?" Claire nearly dropped the basket. That's a complicated question, sweetheart. Mama loved him a lot. She used to say he was the best man she'd ever known. Is he the best man you've ever known? Claire thought about Jacob, about his weakness and betrayal. She thought about Luke, who worked until his body gave out, who loved his daughter fiercely, who honored his commitments even when they cost him everything. Yeah, she said quietly, I think maybe he is. Then you should tell him. Grown-ups are weird about that stuff. You like each other, but nobody says it. It's not that simple. Why not? You're married. You live together. You work together. You laugh at his jokes. He smiles when you walk in the room. That seems simple to me. Out of the mouths of babes. Claire squeezed Katie's shoulder. I'll think about it. But thinking and doing were different things. Claire and Luke maintained a careful distance. They worked well together, developed an easy partnership, but at night they retreated to separate rooms. They didn't discuss feelings or the future beyond the ranch's survival. They existed in a comfortable limbo that felt safe but increasingly hollow. The truth was, Claire had started to feel things she hadn't expected, the way Luke looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. The small kindnesses he showed, like making sure she had water in the field or fixing the squeaky hinge on her door. The conversations that stretched longer each night after Katie went to bed, ranging from ranch business to childhood memories to dreams neither had shared with anyone else. She was falling for her husband. It was terrifying. The benchmark date arrived with nerve-wracking precision. 90 days after the bank meeting, Claire compiled their results into a comprehensive report. They'd exceeded every projection. Equipment sales had generated $10,000. Grazing leases brought in $7,000. The hay operation, despite being brand new, had produced $3,000 in contracts. Combined with their cattle sales and Katie's egg operation, which surprisingly brought in steady small amounts, they generated $32,000 in new revenue. After covering expenses and making payments, they'd netted enough to satisfy the bank's requirements and then some. Phil Henderson reviewed the report with an expression that shifted from skeptical to impressed. I'll admit, Mrs. Coleman. Morrison, I didn't think you could pull this off. Never underestimate a woman with something to prove, Claire said. Luke sat beside her, his hand resting on the arm of her chair, not quite touching but close enough that she could feel his presence. Henderson pushed papers across his desk. Loan restructuring, as discussed. Lower monthly payments, extended term. You'll pay more interest overall, but it's manageable now. Congratulations, the Morrison Ranch officially has a future. They signed the documents making it real. Walking out of the bank, Luke grabbed Claire's hand suddenly. She startled, but he held on, threading his fingers through hers. We did it, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You did it. You saved everything. We did it together, Claire corrected. But her heart pounded at the simple contact, his calloused hand warm against hers. They drove home in comfortable silence, hands still linked on the bench seat. Katie was waiting on the porch. When she saw them holding hands, her face lit up like Christmas morning. Does this mean you're really, really married now?
We've been really, really married for 3 months, Luke pointed out.
Yeah, but now you're holding hands. That's different. Katie looked entirely too pleased with herself. Danny emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. How'd it go? We're official, Luke announced. The bank restructured everything. We're solvent again. Danny let out a whoop and grabbed them both in a bear hug. We need to celebrate. I'll run into town, grab steaks and supplies. We'll have a proper dinner for once. Make sure you get ice cream, Katie insisted. Celebrations need ice cream. Danny drove off. Katie dragged Luke to the barn to show him something apparently urgent involving a baby chick. Claire stood on the porch, watching her new family scatter to their tasks, and felt a fierce wave of belonging wash over her. This was her home now. These were her people. Somewhere in the chaos of saving the ranch, she'd stopped thinking about what she'd lost and started appreciating what she'd found. Evening arrived with golden light and the smell of grilling meat. Danny had gone all out, bringing not just steaks but fresh vegetables, good bread, and 3 kinds of ice cream. They ate on the porch, laughing and telling stories. Katie recounted the entire 90-day journey from her perspective, which involved dramatic reenactments and wild embellishments. Luke's smile reached his eyes for the first time since Claire had known him. After dinner, Katie fell asleep in Luke's lap, exhausted by excitement. Danny volunteered to carry her up to bed. You two should talk, he said meaningfully, giving Luke a pointed look. Claire and Luke sat in the porch swing, moving gently in the cooling air. The sun had set, leaving stars scattered across the huge Texas sky. Crickets sang their evening songs. The ranch felt peaceful, settled, like it could finally breathe again. "Claire," Luke started, then stopped. He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize as nervousness. "These past 3 months have been the hardest and best of my life. Hard because of the work and the stress and the constant fear of failure, but best because of you. You came into our lives like a force of nature and fixed everything I'd broken. You gave Katie her home back. You gave me hope again. And somewhere in all of that, you became the most important person in my world." Claire's breath caught. "Luke, let me finish. I know we started this as a business arrangement. I know you were running from heartbreak and I was drowning in debt. I know every logical reason this shouldn't work. But Claire, I don't care about logic anymore. I care about how I feel when you walk into a room. I care about your laugh and your fierce determination and the way you love my daughter. I care about building a real life with you, not just a partnership on paper." "I'm scared," Claire admitted. "Jacob hurt me so badly. The thought of opening up again, of being that vulnerable, terrifies me." "I'm not Jacob," Luke said firmly. "I don't make promises I can't keep, and I'm promising you right now, if you give me a chance, I'll spend every day proving you made the right choice. Not just in saving this ranch, in choosing me." He took her hand, the gesture familiar now. "I love you, Claire Morrison. I think I started falling for you the moment you stood on that porch and agreed to Katie's crazy proposal. I just didn't know it yet." Tears welled in Claire's eyes. Happy tears, she realized. Not the bitter tears of rejection, but the overwhelming emotion of being truly seen and chosen. "I love you too," she whispered. "I've been trying not to. Trying to keep it professional and safe. But somewhere between spreadsheets and cattle drives, you became everything to me." Luke cupped her face gently. "Is it okay if I kiss my wife now? I thought you'd never ask." The kiss was soft at first, tentative, then deeper. 3 months of restrained feelings finally released. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "That was worth the wait," Luke murmured. "Definitely worth it," Claire agreed. They sat together, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the stars emerge fully. The ranch hummed around them, with the sounds of animals settling and wind through grass. Somewhere inside, Danny was probably watching through a window, grinning like a fool. Katie slept peacefully, secure in her home. Everything Claire had thought she wanted, the fancy wedding, the easy life in town, the safe, predictable future, it all seemed meaningless now. This was real. This messy, complicated, beautiful life on a ranch, with a man who'd become her partner in every sense of the word. "You know," Claire said, "Katie's going to be completely insufferable about this. She'll take full credit. She's the one who proposed. We just went along with her plan. Best proposal I ever received. Better than the one from the guy who left you at the altar? Infinitely better. That little girl in boots knew exactly what she was doing." They sat until the moon rose, talking about everything and nothing. About expanding the ranch, about Katie's future, about their own dreams that no longer felt separate but intertwined, about building something lasting, not just a business but a family, a real partnership that went beyond survival into something that flourished. Finally, Luke stood and pulled Claire to her feet. "Come on, Mrs. Morrison." "Tomorrow starts early. We've got a ranch to run." "Together," Claire said. "Together," he confirmed. They walked into the house hand in hand, closing the door on the past and stepping fully into their future. Above them, through Katie's window, a small figure watched with a satisfied smile before burrowing back under her covers. Mission accomplished, the little matchmaker thought. Now she could focus on convincing her parents to get her a horse for her birthday, but that was a project for another day.